Welcome back. We often think that to regain our value, we need to explain more, try harder, stay longer. But the truth is, every time you try to be understood, you cheapen your own value. If she doesn't appreciate you, no need to get angry, no need to accuse. Just stop acting like she still matters. Because a man who doesn't need to be recognized is a man no one dares to underestimate. This video doesn't teach you how to make her love you back. It teaches you how to reclaim yourself so that if someone leaves, you'll still be the person they miss but can't reach anymore. Number 1, stop explaining yourself. It's the loudest way to reclaim your value. There's a moment every man faces in a relationship when the woman he's with starts to test the boundaries. Not maliciously, not even consciously, but emotionally. It shows up in small ways first. A sarcastic comment that stings, a cold shoulder when you didn't answer fast enough, a sudden withdrawal after you opened up. You sense something's off, but instead of standing firm, you start doing what most men are conditioned to do. You explain. You explain why you texted late, why you didn't notice her mood, why you thought the joke was harmless, why you couldn't spend the whole weekend with her. You talk and talk, not because you're wrong, but because you're afraid of losing her approval. That's the trap, and once you fall into it, you've already handed over the frame. What you need to understand is this: when a woman doesn't respect you, she will unconsciously provoke you to justify yourself. Not because she needs answers, but because she wants to feel power. And every time you break that calm, masculine presence to defend yourself, you reinforce the idea that her emotions control you, that your self-worth depends on her validation. But here's the twist: the most powerful move isn't an emotional counterattack. It's silence. It's not playing the game at all. When she throws passive-aggressive comments or creates unnecessary drama, and you look at her calmly and say, "I understand, but I don't feel the need to explain myself further," you disrupt the entire emotional pattern. Suddenly she realizes she's not in control of your internal state. And that's deeply attractive and deeply unsettling to someone who was expecting you to react like every other guy. Psychologically, this is known as value assertion through withdrawal. According to Baumeister and Vos, when you stop participating in unbalanced social exchanges, you break the reward loop that reinforces toxic dynamics. In plain terms, when you stop dancing to her chaos, the music dies. That doesn't mean being cold or indifferent. It means you stop using explanations as a way to negotiate your worth. You stop pleading your case in the court of her emotions. You simply stand in what's true for you and move on. The moment you do this, you reclaim authority not over her, but over yourself. Marcus Aurelius said it best: "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. This isn't just Stoic wisdom, it's emotional leadership. When you stop explaining, you signal that your value doesn't need a witness. So next time she accuses you of not caring and you know you've been solid, don't argue, don't list your efforts. Don't try to fix her perception, just say, "I understand how you feel," and get back to your life. Go lift, read, build, grow. Let her sit with the echo of your silence. Because the truth is, a man who doesn't feel the need to explain himself is a man who doesn't need to be chosen to feel complete. And paradoxically, that's the kind of man a woman is most drawn to. Not the one who convinces her, but the one who compels her simply by being. Number 2, she won't understand why you're calm, and that's exactly the point. There's a moment when you stop playing her emotional game and everything changes. Not because you finally cracked the code of what she wants, but because you realize your peace matters more than her chaos. You used to stay up until 2 a.m. explaining yourself. You canceled plans to be there when she threw tantrums over texts. You read every passive-aggressive message like a desperate codebreaker, looking for the right reply that might earn you another day of approval. You thought love was measured in sacrifice. It's not. It's measured in self-respect. Because at some point you realize her chaos isn't a cry for help. It's a test of control. When she sends that cold K, after you've poured your time and effort into something real, she's not communicating. She's provoking. She wants to know if she still owns your emotional state. And most men fail the test. They dive right back in. They explain, apologize, chase, lose themselves. But the man who pauses, breathes, and simply replies, "I'm in the middle of something, I'll talk to you later," and goes back to his life, that man disrupts everything. Choosing peace is a threat to emotional manipulation. It signals boundaries, and boundaries to the emotionally volatile feel like rejection. That's not your responsibility. That's just the price of emotional maturity. As Seligman's work in positive psychology explains, inner calm is the foundation of healthy self-esteem. When you stop revolving your actions around someone else's turbulence, you create stability for yourself. And ironically, that's what they claim to want all along. There's a reason why the Stoics held peace above all else. Epictetus wrote, "Choose not to be harmed and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed and you haven't been." In modern terms, your mind is your fortress. Her storm only gets in if you open the door. So when she pushes your buttons, don't respond recenter. When she's short and cold, don't mirror it, rise above it. Say less. Do more. Go for a walk. Write in your journal. Finish that task you've been putting off. Shift the energy back into your world, not hers. This isn't indifference. This is power. It's the power to say, "I'm not here to fix your mood swings. I'm here to protect my peace." And when she senses that her emotional volatility no longer controls the pace of your attention, something shifts. You're no longer predictable. You're no longer easy to manipulate. You've stopped feeding the drama. And the truth is, women notice that. They feel it. That absence of reaction. That calm in the storm. That stillness that says, "I won't drown in your waves because I've already anchored myself." That's the moment you become more than a man chasing love. You become a man living from strength, a man who doesn't flinch, a man who isn't afraid to walk away from noise to protect the silence he worked hard to earn. And in a world that feeds on chaos, that kind of peace is the most attractive force of all. Number 3, stop competing for her time and she'll start competing for yours. There comes a moment when you realize the most powerful move isn't chasing her harder. It's pulling back completely, not out of spite, not to manipulate, but because you finally respect your own time more than her temporary attention. You used to initiate every text. You planned every date. You responded to every story she posted, threw a heart on every new selfie, commented just to stay on her radar. You told yourself it was effort, initiative, investment, but what it really was, competition. And the sad truth? She didn't have to do much, just exist, while you danced around her digital orbit, hoping she'd toss you a little validation. But here's the twist most men don't see until it's too late. The more accessible you are, the less valuable you appear. The more you show up first, the more she assumes you have nowhere else to be. Until one day you don't show up. You don't send the good morning text. You don't reply within 5 minutes. You stop watching her stories. Stop liking her selfies. Stop competing with every other guy in her DMs for a slice of her attention. Not because you're angry, but because your energy has a cost. And you finally decided she hasn't earned the price. Suddenly, silence speaks louder than the effort ever did. That silence triggers something deeper, scarcity. As Cialdini explained in his research on influence, humans assign value based on scarcity. When something becomes less available, it becomes more desirable. When your presence is no longer a given, she begins to feel your absence, not because she's entitled to your time, but because she had quietly gotten used to it. And now that it's gone, she questions it, wonders about it, starts to feel that uncomfortable shift in power. And here's where things get interesting. She might reach out, she might not. But either way, you're no longer playing to win her time. You're living your own. You replace dopamine chasing behaviors with discipline. Instead of checking if she posted today, you check in with your progress, your health, your work, your peace. Instead of refreshing her chat bubble, you refresh your goals. She becomes a part of your world, not the center of it. This isn't detachment out of bitterness, it's control through clarity. Seneca once said, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." You're no longer waiting on her next text to feel valued. You've reclaimed your time, your energy, your presence. And when you stop chasing her time, she starts noticing how rare and valuable yours really is. That's not game playing, that's self-worth. And the kind of man who doesn't compete for attention becomes the kind of man attention competes for. Because in a world full of men trying to prove themselves, the one who doesn't try stands out the most. Number 4. Stop reacting to her mixed signals and watch her clarity rise. There's a certain kind of emotional fog women sometimes create, not because they're cruel, but because they're human, and sometimes confused. One minute she's warm, laughing at your texts, asking about your day. The next, cold, dry replies, long silences, an energy shift you can't quite explain. You replay every message, look for clues. Did you say too much? Not enough? Should you double text? Ask if she's okay? But then something shifts in you. You stop chasing the pattern. You stop playing the amateur psychologist trying to decode every emoji. You stop needing her signal to be clear for you to feel okay. And that moment changes everything. Because here's the brutal psychological truth. Mixed signals aren't accidents. They're a form of unconscious control. According to Buss 1989, this emotional inconsistency activates anxiety, keeping you hooked by intermittently rewarding you with affection. It's like a slot machine that pays out just enough to keep you playing. But when you stop reacting, when you stop pulling the lever, you stop being predictable. And more importantly, you stop being available on demand. Let her wonder why you're calm when she's distant. Let her feel the silence you used to fill. When she sends that vague, lukewarm message, "Hey, been busy," you respond with warmth but no attachment. "All good, take care of yourself." Then you return to building your world. Not to make her chase, but because you finally value your peace over emotional guessing games. This isn't about punishing her, it's about protecting you. When you stop reacting, you reclaim the frame. You become the eye of the storm, still while everything else swirls around you. You don't punish her silence with your own silence, you just don't need her noise to feel whole anymore. You start journaling instead of texting back too quickly. You start lifting weights instead of lifting conversations that no longer have weight. You spend more time with people who don't confuse you. You realize peace is a choice, and every message you don't respond to out of habit is a vote for the man you're becoming. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Her behavior is not your responsibility. Your response is. And when you stop reacting to her emotional shifts, you stop living in her weather system. She might return with clarity, she might not. But either way, you've detached from the idea that her inconsistency means anything about your worth. You don't need a clear signal to walk away from the static. And in a world full of men addicted to emotional volatility, the one who stays centered becomes unforgettable. Number 5. Smile without her and mean it. There was a time when your happiness had her name all over it. A reply from her lit up your entire day. A compliment from her made you feel seen. You shaped your mood around her attention, her affection, her unpredictable emotional climate. And when she pulled away, it felt like the sun went out. But something changed. Now you smile, and it's not for her. It's for the life you've built outside of her. It's for the peace you found in early morning workouts, for the laughter you share with friends over dinner, for the quiet satisfaction of a project finally coming together. You post a photo not to get her attention, but to capture the moment, a real moment, one she no longer defines, and she sees it. Maybe she scrolls past your post and pauses. You're smiling in that way that says, "I'm whole now," and that moment unsettles her because it tells her something she hadn't considered. You don't need her to feel alive anymore. This shift in emotional gravity is powerful. According to Cialdini's principle of scarcity, people value what they can no longer easily influence. When your joy no longer bends to her presence or absence, it becomes rare, and that rarity makes it magnetic. But this time, your light doesn't seek approval. It shines because you've remembered how to generate it yourself. You stop checking if she viewed your story. You start planning your week around things that energize you, not drain you. You reconnect with friends who always made you laugh, and you find new spaces where your identity expands. A hiking trail, a book club, a quiet sunrise. You are no longer trying to be the man she wants. You are becoming the man you were meant to be. And that version of you doesn't beg for connection. He invites it and is perfectly content if it doesn't arrive. Epictetus once said, "Happiness is a choice that belongs to you, not to her, not to how she treats you, not to whether she validates your worth with a late-night text or a sudden like on an old post. When you smile now, it's rooted in your independence, not her attention." Modern psychology backs this up. Tedeschi and Calhoun's research on post-traumatic growth shows that genuine joy after emotional pain rebuilds not only confidence, but attraction. You become someone who's not just surviving heartbreak, you're thriving because of it. And here's the beautiful irony. When you no longer smile for her, she may start chasing the smile she once took for granted. But by then, your smile will belong to something bigger yourself. Number 6. When you focus on your purpose, you stop chasing her validation. There's a moment every man faces when he realizes the most powerful move isn't to win her over, but to win himself back. Not by saying more, proving more, or showing her what she's missing, but by shifting the spotlight onto the one thing that actually grows your value, your purpose. At first, it might look like silence. You don't respond to her vague messages as quickly anymore. You skip scrolling through her stories and instead scroll through articles on how to build muscle, start a side business, or run your first 5K. You're not trying to get her to notice you. You're too busy becoming someone she couldn't ignore even if she tried. And ironically, that's when she starts noticing. According to the self-determination theory by Deci and Ryan, the pursuit of personal goals fuels our sense of autonomy and competence, two pillars of genuine self-worth. When you start chasing your goals instead of her approval, something shifts. You no longer carry the air of a man asking to be chosen. You become the man who has already chosen himself. You begin waking up earlier, not to check if she texted back, but to hit the gym before work. You set a 3-month target. Finish that online certification, start the photography project you shelved, or map out your career path for the next year. Your energy is no longer being siphoned into emotional guesswork. It's being invested in building something real. And when she reaches out, testing the waters with a "Hey stranger" or "Was thinking about you," your response is grounded, centered. "I've been focused on a big project lately, but it's good to hear from you." That tone, not cold, but uninvested, speaks volumes. It says your time is no longer available on demand. It's being used wisely, purposefully for you. Seneca said, "Time is your most valuable asset. You must guard it more fiercely than your money. Every time you redirect your energy from trying to win her back to building your own future, you make a quiet declaration of self-respect. And that declaration echoes louder than any romantic gesture ever could." From a psychological perspective, this redirection toward personal mastery is deeply attractive. People are drawn to those who are in motion, who are lit from within by something larger than the need for attention. You become a man with momentum, a man harder to reach, a man who is no longer orbiting around her, but around his own gravitational center. And here's the twist: when she realizes she's no longer the center of your world, that's exactly when you start to become the center of hers. But the man you're becoming doesn't need that anymore. He's moved on not out of bitterness, but out of clarity, because he's finally found something better than her validation. He's found his mission. Number 7, distance isn't rejection. It's self-respect in action. There's a subtle shift that happens when a man stops making himself constantly available, not out of bitterness, not as a game, but as a quiet decision to value his time, energy, and peace more than the temporary satisfaction of being needed. That shift creates distance, not to push her away, but to come back to himself. You used to jump at every message. You'd cancel plans just to be there when she needed you, even if that meant losing sleep or abandoning your own priorities. But one day, you stop. She sends a late-night text, and instead of responding immediately, you leave it until morning. Not because you're punishing her, but because your night is yours now, and you realize how powerful that feels. According to Cialdini's principle of scarcity, the less accessible something is, the more valuable it appears. By creating space, you change the emotional equation. She's no longer certain of your presence, and in that uncertainty, a new awareness forms. You're not orbiting her anymore. You have your own gravitational pull. It's not manipulation, it's maturity. You begin responding when it aligns with your schedule, not hers. You turn down vague invitations that drain your time. You say, "I'm busy today, but let's catch up later if it still works for you." That's not coldness, it's clarity. That's not ego, it's self-command. And when she starts to notice the change, when she asks why you're different, you don't over-explain. You simply say, "I've been focused on my work. It feels good to prioritize it." That response doesn't just set a boundary, it declares a new reality. You're no longer measuring your worth by her responses. Marcus Aurelius said, "Withdraw into yourself, especially when you are forced to be around those who can disturb your peace." This distance you create isn't isolation, it's insulation. It's the invisible wall that protects your time, your peace, and your masculine edge. Psychologically, this space you hold activates something deep: curiosity. She wonders what you're doing, why you're not chasing, whether you've moved on emotionally, and in that wondering, the dynamic flips. She starts reaching, she starts evaluating. She begins to feel the loss of a version of you she had easy access to. But the truth is, that version of you needed to go, because he gave too much, too fast, too often. And this new version of you, calm, centered, slightly out of reach, isn't playing hard to get. He's just finally in control of his energy. Distance is not the absence of love. It's the presence of standards. When you choose to pull back, not to provoke her, but to protect yourself, you make a silent statement that echoes louder than any long paragraph ever could. "I'm not here to be available, I'm here to be valuable." And the men who learn this, who live this, stop chasing connection that costs them peace. They attract it instead on their terms. Number 8. Authenticity is the end of the performance and the beginning of real power. For a long time, you thought being agreeable meant being loved. That if you adjusted your tone, softened your truth, or withheld your real opinions, she'd stay. You tiptoed around tension. You smiled when you felt disappointment. You swallowed discomfort because you believed love meant peace at all costs. But then something shifted. You realized that every time you abandoned your truth to please her, you didn't win her, you lost yourself. So you stop. You stop trying to be what she wants and start being who you really are. Not out of defiance, but out of self-respect. She shows up late again, no apology. In the past, you'd laugh it off and say it's fine. Now you look at her and say calmly, I value my time. If we can't respect each other's time, I'll move differently. That moment isn't a fight, it's a reset. It's you drawing a line, not to punish her, but to protect the version of you that refuses to be overlooked. Psychologically, this is the power of authenticity. According to Wood et al. 2008, people who live aligned with their values develop stronger self-esteem and more fulfilling relationships. Why? Because when you're honest about who you are, you attract people who either respect it or remove themselves. Both outcomes are wins. You start to notice something strange. When you speak your truth, even if it's uncomfortable, people listen more. You stop explaining why you're busy or why you won't tolerate disrespect. You let your standards speak, and she begins to feel it. That shift, that weight, that version of you who no longer compromises himself to stay in the room. And here's the paradox. The more real you are, the more attractive you become. Not because you're trying to be impressive, but because there's nothing more magnetic than a man who doesn't need to pretend. So you apply it daily. She says something passive-aggressive, and you don't ignore it. You say, if something's on your mind, let's talk directly. I don't do games. She ghosts for 2 days, then pops back like nothing happened. You reply, I expect consistency. If you're not ready for that, I understand, but I won't chase it. Your words are calm. Your tone is steady. You don't shout. You don't beg. You simply mean what you say. Epictetus once said, if you wish to be good, begin by believing that you are bad. In other words, real growth starts when you stop pretending and face who you really are. Not the curated image, not the charming version, but the honest one, the man who speaks up when it's uncomfortable, who says no without guilt, who walks away when he's being disrespected. And when you live this way, you don't just change your relationship with her, you change your relationship with yourself. You start investing in the things that reflect your values, building, learning, mentoring, creating. You no longer seek validation through her approval. You generate it internally, through the quiet alignment of your words and actions. This isn't about being rude, it's about being real. And when you live from that place, the game changes. You stop being one of many. You become unforgettable, not because you impressed her, but because you became undeniable. Authenticity isn't a tactic. It's the end of the performance and the beginning of real power. You just have to be the person she can't replace. Being silent isn't because you're weak. It's because you're no longer interested in the game of who's right and who's wrong. You choose peace. You choose boundaries. You choose a life that doesn't center on her anymore. And when you smile without her in your thoughts, that's when she starts missing you in a way that you don't need her to anymore. If you've ever been underestimated, ever tried to be recognized, ever been a stranger just to hold on to someone, it's time to step out of that role. Subscribe, ring the bell, and comment below. I'm silent, but I'm not gone. I'm coming back to myself. See you in Stoic love, where men learn to retreat, not to escape, but to become untouchable. You just have to be the person she can't replace. Being silent isn't because you're weak. It's because you're no longer interested in the game of who's right and who's wrong. You choose peace. You choose boundaries. You choose a life that doesn't center on her anymore. And when you smile without her in your thoughts, that's when she starts missing you in a way that you don't need her to anymore. If you've ever been underestimated, ever tried to be recognized, ever been a stranger just to hold on to someone, it's time to step out of that role. Subscribe, ring the bell, and comment below. I'm silent, but I'm not gone. I'm coming back to myself. See you in Stoic love, where men learn to retreat, not to escape, but to become untouchable.